Cycle of quality management. So this is a quality management cycle. The first step in this cycle is measurement to check how we are doing. Are we doing good or bad? To measure that. Next, assessment. Are we expecting the meeting the expectation? What are expectation we have? Compare that to the present situation. That is assessment. Improvement. If there is a huge gap between the expectation and the actual things that are going on, we have to do the improvement. How can we improve the performance? If we are meeting all of our expectations, that no need of improvement, again we can go to the first step, that is measurement. So quality management cycle measurement. How are we doing? To judge the customer service, such as patient satisfaction, etc., is a example of measurement. Okay, you give them the feedback form. The feedback form here is a measuring tool. Assessment. Are we meeting the expectation? To determine the goals that are being met. When we get back the feedback form, check. We have expected that we are doing good in terms of patient satisfaction, but what is the actual reality that the feedback forms which have come back that will answer. Okay, and then we have to analyze the gap, that is the assessment. In improvement, what change we can make? To discuss the ways of changing the current processes. If our patient satisfaction is not to par as we have expected, find out where the improvement has to be done and implement that. So there are measurement data for healthcare quality management purposes. The first measurement data is absolute number. For example, the number of it should not be in decimals. Absolute number should not be in decimals. So for example, is number of patients visiting the OP. You can't say 10.5 patients visited. It should be an absolute number, 10 patient, 11 patient, 20 patient. So that's an example of absolute number. Next is percentage. So any absolute number represented in is expressed in an absolute in a percentage form is giving much more information. Okay, so it communicates the measures prevalence in the population, that is percentage. For example, this many percent of admissions acquire hospital acquire 10% of all the inpatient admissions are concerned with healthcare associated infection. So that giving an information in a percentage form communicates the gravity of the situation. Average means it is the arithmetic mean. It is sum of the qualities divided by number of the qualities. For example, average length of stay of patient, average number of patient visiting in a hospital throughout the year, average salary of a nurse or average salary of the doctors. Ratio, that is one, for example, nurse patient ratio, doctor patient ratio. These are the examples of ratio measurement data. So absolute number, for example, number of patients served in the health clinic, who falls, number of falls in the hospital. Percentage, the percentage of newly hired staff who receive job training, etc. Average is the average length of patient stay, average waiting time. Now, ratio, nurse to patient ratio, cost to charge ratio, etc. So these are the examples of various kind of measurement data used in healthcare industry. Accuracy. The performance measures must be accurate. What it means is it should be that accuracy related to the correctness of the number. Whatever you are measuring, it should be correct. If the patient is arriving, if you are checking the waiting time, the patient is arriving at 9:15. You have to note it down as 9:15 only. You can't go 5 minutes above or beyond, because that will minus the correctness of the number. So whatever you are measuring, the measuring tool should be accurate. Accuracy also relates to the validity of the measure. Is your tool able to measure what is supposed to measure? Okay, so that is the meaning of validity. For example, a thermometer. A thermometer is supposed to measure the temperature of the body. You don't expect a thermometer to check the weight of a person. Okay, so thermometer is supposed to measure the body temperature. If it is not working properly, it will not measure the temperature properly. So it is not valid. So that is accuracy. Next, measurement categories. There are three main categories: structure measures, process measures, and outcome measures. Structure measures are the first category, process the second, and outcome measures is the third. In structure measure, what you are doing is you are evaluating the physical and the organizational resources actually available to support the healthcare delivery or to support the care the hospital or the clinic intends to give. Okay, physically what is present, what you can see. For example, the hospital has the capacity of 500 beds. Okay, so 500 bed becomes the structure measurement. Is the bed being overbooked or is it underbooked? Okay, so that's some structure measurement. The organization's capacity to provide quality services. These are the indirect measures of performance. Process measures evaluate whether the activities are performed during the delivery of healthcare services are delivered satisfactorily or not. The receiver will check how the process were they happy with the activity performed, the process of care received. Okay, so it is more of a perception. These measures provide important information about the performance at all levels of the organism. Process measurement can be done from the point of entry, from the reception till the discharge. Okay, so this is an example of a process measurement. Various organization, various departments within the hospital takes place in the part of process measurement. Every process can be measured. Will it be the nursing staff, the surgery, the process of surgery, the materials used, was it late, was the process late, was the logistic late, did it arrive on time? So these are the different processes. So measuring the satisfaction through the process measurement is also a very important tool to check the satisfaction level. Outcome measurement, so it evaluates the end results of the healthcare services. And outcome measurement, from the name itself we can understand it is the end result. Okay, the result of the structure and processes coming together will give an outcome. And with the outcome, is it satisfactory or not? For example, patient satisfaction is a common outcome measure. They are used to evaluate the use of healthcare services, how good it is at the end of the day, after receiving all the processes, after looking at all the structure, already physical structure provided, what is the outcome? How do you feel about it? So that is a patient satisfaction. So measurement categories, the examples: structure, the number of hours per day a person skilled in reading head CT scans is available. So the number of hours, it is tangible. Process, percentage of emergency department patients less than 13 years old with current weight in kilograms documented in the emergency department record. So it's a process. Are you documenting it or not? Are you looking after it or not? The process involved. So if they are not doing this, it's a negative mark in the process measurement. Outcome measure, median time from emergency department arrival to emergency department departure for the patients admitted to the hospitals. So that is the medium length of patient stay. That's an outcome. And then 2 tiers of measures are used to evaluate performance. One is system level measure and one is activity level measure. What happens in system level is it's a snapshot of the overall clinical performance. What do you think about this hospital in its entirety? That is called system level measures. So at the end, is the patient happy with this particular hospital? Okay, what happens in activity level measure is it is departmentalized. Activities influence the quality and performance of different services. Example, time, percentage of reception staff to remind patients on their appointment. So this is not the entirety of the hospital. This is a part of a hospital. That is activity level measures, but the entirety of our institution is a system level measure. Steps of constructing measures. First is identify the topic of interest. First, you have to check what you are interested to find. For example, if it is patient satisfaction, so that is your topic of interest. You want to know what is the rate of patient satisfaction in your hospital. So that is identifying a topic of interest. What you want to check. Then you develop a measure. So how to check this topic of interest? How to check patient satisfaction? Providing feedback forms. So you develop a feedback form. You write down what all questions should be there in a feedback form. So that is developing the measure. Then design a data collection system. After you have a measure developed, you have a measuring tool with you. Now you will decide what has to be collected. That is patient satisfaction. Are you satisfied with nursing services? How much are you satisfied with the doctor's services? How much are you satisfied with the cleanliness of the hospital, etc. So these are the questions. So what you want to check. Then who will collect it? Will the quality officers will collect the data? Will the reception staff will collect this data? Okay, that will be decided. When? During at what time of the day, or during from which date to which date? the patient satisfaction feedback should be collected. That is decided. Where, like in which part of the hospital? Will it be the discharge counter? Will it be the billing department, the cash counter, or reception, or at each and every OPD department? So that is discussed. And how we'll say, what refers to the process of how to process, refers to the process used to gather data. For example, performance measures using, are you using questionnaire, are you using observation, are you using the interview method of collecting data? Okay, so that are the different steps of constructing measures. So balanced scorecard. It is a framework for measuring private industry's performance, but nowadays it is also being used in the healthcare industry. The scorecard measures are typically sorted into 4 categories. It is recommended by Kaplan and Norton in 1996. So the 4 areas of a balanced scorecard: first one is customer, second is internal business, third is learning and growth, and financial. We will see in detail. So customer. So the customer's perspective of your institution: customer satisfaction, customer retention, market share, brand strength, the goodwill you have among your customer, etc., is coming under the customer's perspective. Internal process perspective: inventory, orders, resources, the physical structure that your institution has, quality control, operations, etc. Okay, so what are the processes which is going on in the industry? Each hospital will differ in terms of their internal process with other hospital. No two hospital will have the same internal process unless and until it's a franchisee hospital. Learning or growth perspective, for it represents the employee. Are your employees satisfied with working in your industry? How much is the employee turnover rate? Are you appointing skilled and educated employee, competent employee to do a particular job? Are your employee educationally qualified to do that particular job? So that comes under the learning growth perspective. Are you giving continual education program for your employees? Are you conducting training, regular conferences and seminars for your employees? So that's the learning and growth perspective. Financial perspective, that is the net profit, the profit you're making as an organization. What is your cash flow, net income, expenses, revenue? All the accounting parts will come under the financial perspective. So this is a balanced scorecard, and it's 4 main areas. Pillars of excellence. So pillars of excellence is a modified Norton and Kaplan's balanced scorecard, but it is used, it reflects the clinical areas of focus. First is clinical productivity and efficiency. Whatever you are doing, are you wasting resources or not? The clinical staff, are they wasting resources or not? Are they productive enough or not? Next is mutual respect and diversity. Is your organization following the value of mutual respect and diversity while treating patients and people from various areas of life? Social commitment. Are you committed towards patient care or not? Do you have a corporate social responsibility or not if you are a private sector organization? External environment assessment. How are your competitors doing in this particular field of healthcare? Patients characteristics. Are you a specialized hospital? Are you a old age geriatric hospital? Are you a maternity hospital? What kind of specialization does your hospital provide? Are you a multi specialized hospital? So these are the pillars of excellence that will be reflected in the hospital's balance scorecard. Evaluating performance. So measurement results are evaluated to determine whether processes are performing as expected or not. Before you evaluate the performance, you should have previously set expectations and goals. So it will guide you to compare the results which you have at your hand. So it will judge the impact of improvements. Whatever steps you have took to fill the gap between the current working scenario and the expected working scenario, the steps which you have taken, the actions which you have taken, did it give a positive impact or a negative impact? Performance goals, external factors, and other factors are also considered while evaluating a performance. So 3 activities are involved in this performance evaluating principle. First, you have to display the measurement data so that you can, just looking at the data displayed, you can understand the information the data is trying to give. The data may be displayed in various forms of figures and graphs, which we'll discuss later. And then after you have seen the data you have collected, you can compare it to the expectations. Then determine whether action is needed or not. If there is a huge gap between the actual performance and expectation, obviously you have to take the action. If not, you can continue what the current processes are doing. So displaying data, it should be in the format from which conclusions can be easily drawn. Just by looking at it, you can conclude what it is trying to say. Factors should be considered is the type of data to be reported, audience, who is going to watch this data. Is the top management involved during this meeting, or is this meeting just restricted to a particular department in the hospital, etc.? So audience and information's intended use, the things you are going to display, how is it going to be used in the future? The presentation should provide accurate and reliable information to help the audience answer the following questions. What is the current performance? Is there any trend in the data? Should any action be taken? What kind of action should be taken, if any? Okay, so these are the answers you will get while after displaying the data. So different tools of displaying data. First is the pie chart, pyramid chart, radar chart, histogram, bar graph, scatter diagram, and line graph. We will discuss each one of these. First, the pie chart. A pie chart or a circle chart is a circular statistical graph which is divided into slices to illustrate the numerical proportion. So this is how a pie chart is looking like. Many of you have seen this in various depiction of information. So it will contain the percentage. Usually it will be presented in percentage format. Next is a pyramid chart. So a pyramid chart is also called as a triangle diagram or a triangle chart. It appears in the shape of a triangle divided into horizontal section, and it is used to represent the hierarchies. For example, each chart's shape and each section has a different size. You can see the size of the management here and the size of the trust here. Okay, so width of each section indicates the level of hierarchy among the topic. For example, you can take here as the number of blue collar workers in a hospital, number of white collar workers in the hospital, number of operational workers in the hospital, and the top will be the top management, number of top management. You can see how much what is the size difference between the number of top management people you have in your hospital as compared to the number of blue collar workers in your hospital. That's one example. Radar chart. Radar chart is a graphical method of displaying multivariate data in the form of two-dimensional chart or three-dimensional or more qualitative variables. It is represented on axis starting from the same point. So what happens here is different departments in a hospital. For example, here restaurant comparison is given, but in terms of healthcare in a hospital, different departments can be plotted here, and different departments and its function in various areas in terms of safety, patient safety, in some terms of length of patient stay, cost, and protocols being followed, any medical errors, etc., of various departments in a hospital. Okay, so that can be plotted here. So that is how multivariate data. Here you have multiple variables like patient safety, cost, length of stay, etc. These are one variables. The next variable is the number of departments. So that is how you can do a comparison using a radar chart. Histogram. A histogram is a bar-like representation of data that buckets a range of outcomes into columns along the x-axis. The y-axis represents the number of count or percentage of occurrence in the data for each column and can be used to visualize the distribution. This is how the y-axis and x-axis is there. When it comes to x-axis, outcomes will be represented, and y-axis will be the count represented. Bar graph. A bar graph or chart is a chart that represents the category of data with rectangular bars. That's the difference between histogram and bar graph. There is space between each of this bar, so it becomes a bar graph. If it was together, it would have been histogram, with the length, heights and lengths are proportional to the values they represent. The bars can be plotted vertically or horizontally too. Scatter diagram. A scatter diagram is used to show the relationship between two kinds of data. It could be the relationship between cause and effect, between one cause and another cause and another, and between one cause and two others. Okay, so relationship between all the variables involved can be plotted using a scatter diagram. So positive correlation, for example, the increased number of smoking will increase the chance of getting lung cancer. That's a positive correlation here. You can see the positive line going upwards. Negative correlation, as one variable increases, the other variable decreases. For example, if you increase the exercise, time of exercise, the chances of obesity will be reduced. Then no correlation, there is no relationship between any two variables. For example, eating apples and getting needle stick injury, there is no correlation between these two. That's how a scatter diagram will represent data. Line graph. A line graph is a type of chart used to show information that changes over time. Trend can be visualized using a line graph. Plot line graphs using several points and connect it by straight lines. That is how you have to plot several points, these black dots, and at last you have to connect them using straight line. Then you will get a trend. You will get a movement of points with which you can understand when was the peak response happening and when was the most least response happening. And x-axis will depict the time and y-axis will depict the units. So comparing results to expectation. So measurement without defined performance expectation does not contribute to quality improvement. So the main thing is, first you should know what you are expecting, what your goals are, then only set for the cycle of quality management. So performance goals are quantifiable estimates of or results expected for a given period of time. And your targets should be, whatever expectations you're keeping, they should be smart targets. Smart target, S will stand for specific. That particular target should be in a specific category only. For example, patient satisfaction should not give data about employees' health. It should give only, it should be specific enough for patient satisfaction only. Measurable, you should be able to measure patient satisfaction using obviously feedback forms. So whatever goals you are keeping to measure, it should be measurable. Attainable, it should be possible to attain the expectation. It should be possible to attain patient satisfaction. Relevant, it should be relevant. Patient satisfaction is very relevant in healthcare. You can't go into a labor unit, for example, you can't go to a welding office where welding work is done and claim for patient satisfaction there. So it is not relevant. So relevant industries should keep expectations that are relevant to their industry. Should be time bound. You should keep a time limit from which date to which date the targets should be measured. So that are the smart targets. Setting expectations, performance expectations should be established for every measure. These are based on the part of internal quality priorities influenced by the needs of the stakeholders. So the stakeholders and the top management have a role in setting expectations in various departments of the hospital. Government regulation and accreditation standards also influence the organization's desired performance level, because accrediting or bodies will give you the set of expectations they expect for your hospital to comply by if you want the accreditation done. Benchmarking, learning about practices in other companies for the purpose of using them in your own organization as a standard for comparison. So that is benchmarking. You look at the top performing company or a top performing institution in your market. You see what all are the processes they have, and that processes and their success should be the benchmark for upcoming industries or your institution. Benchmarking uses the level of performance achieved by an exemplary or world-class organization as a standard for comparison. It functions like a scoreboard. Performance variation. Performance stability is evaluated by looking at the degree of variation. Sometimes variation will be due to internal factors and external factors. It may be variation that is repetitive in nature, or sometimes once in a blue moon a variation took place that may affect the performance. So you should keep in mind what all variations, the chances of variations that took place while you are evaluating the performance. There are two types: common cause variation, that is inherent, mostly repetitive; special cause variation, that is unexpected. So common cause variation, when it happens, it is most repetitive. You can use various methods like Lean Six Sigma methods to rectify the common cause variation. It is removed by making a change, removed by management. When there is a special cause out of a blue moon, rarely something occurred, variation took place, and it affected the performance. For example, a sentinel event um, some loss of limb during a surgical procedure or something like that. Treatment led to the loss of functional or motor capabilities of the patient. So that's a special cause, and that will be removed by the quality assurance analyst. So these are the performance variations, common cause and special case. Tampering. Tampering occurs when something is done in reaction to performance result without knowing whether the result was caused by natural variation in the process or something unusual. For the meaning here is you purposefully do some changes in your process so that keeping in mind that your performance result should be good. Okay, so that is unjust. That should not be done. Purposefully changing some attributes of your process just to get a good performance result is called tampering, and it will affect the performance evaluation. Determined need for action is the final phase of performance assessment. So measurement results have been reported and performance is evident, and the extent of performance variation is also apparent. After all these areas, you will determine the need of action. So performance gap, the difference between the actual performance and expected performance. So before you take an action, you have to see how much is the performance gap. So when you will require the performance improvement. Performance does not meet any expectation, and there are no signs of special cause variation. The first of all, the things you are not doing is not meeting the expectations. So in that case, performance improvement should be taken up. Performance meets expectation, but there are signs of special cause variation. It is meeting all the expectation, but there are chances that something went wrong during the process, but still expectations was met. So that's a red flag. So in that case also, performance improvement should take place. Performance does not meet expectations, and there are signs of special cause variation. Both is happening here. Neither you are meeting the expectation, and also some special cause variation signs are also there. In both these cases, performance improvement action should be taken. Designing performance improvement project. Last phase of the quality management. These projects are initiated when measurement data reveal gap between actual and unexpected performance. So the steps are define the improvement goal, set the goal first, then analyze the current practices, that is to measure, design and implement improvements. When you measure, you found some gap, then you have to fill up that gap and while implementing the improvements, and then measure the success. After improvement, doing the improvement actions, you have to check if it was working or not. If it was successful, measure the success and continue the improvement process. This is how the performance improvement steps work. How does the process work now? What is the current situation? Something is wrong, you identified, so what can be improved? You identified what are the areas that is lagging behind. Then how do you improve it? You put your thoughts into actions here, and then how do we measure and track performance? After putting new actions here, you check if it is working properly or not, and again it will go to the step 2 of account. If tracking the performance, here you found you are still not doing good, how further improvements can be done.